Kash Patel went on a podcast and said that Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett was collecting bribes from other countries. He laughed it off like it was just another casual charge. But he didn't think she would lash back that aggressively. And it wasn't just words. Crockett filed a $80 million lawsuit just a few hours later, which left Patel stunned on live TV. This wasn't just another episode of a podcast. It was a turning point in the realm of politics and media that would lead to a high-stakes court battle. The podcast began like all the others. The host sat across from Kash Patel, expecting him to say something outrageous, as he always does. There were a lot of books in the studio that no one had read, and a flag in the background. This was the standard setup for what looked like another heated talk between two men. But halfway through the conversation, Patel leaned in, spoke softly, and revealed something that would change everything. "Jasmine Crockett has been taking money from foreign donors," he said, his eyes wandering off camera for a while. "Not through her campaign, off the books." Patel went on, citing Middle Eastern benefactors and a few Chinese nationals. The host was shocked. There were no names, documentation, or proof to back up the claims. But the harm was done. The clip went viral, getting 2 million views on Twitter and being shared by blogs, cable news, and YouTube channels that were all looking for clicks. In just a few hours, Congresswoman Crockett was trending for all the wrong reasons. Crockett's staff was already working to fix the damage while the news spread over the internet. In Dallas, where her district office sat quietly on a street corner, her staff was already getting angry voicemails before they even understood what had happened. When Theo Whitman, her press assistant, came into her office with a tablet, Jasmine stopped talking on the phone and looked at the clip. Her jaw got tighter. "Did he just say what I think he said?" she inquired. "No more time for confusion. It was time to act." "Call Michael," she said firmly. "I want legal options on the table by tonight." When you say bribe to a sitting member of Congress, it has a lot of power. It means crimes, treason, and distrust, even if it's not true at all. Jasmine Crockett, a lady who had built her political career on being honest and responsible, saw this as more than just a smear campaign. It was personal. Crockett was ready to fight back the next morning, not just in the court of public opinion, but also in a courtroom. But the lawsuit wasn't just going to be another legal file. It was going to mean something. Crockett was done being passive. She was going to let the facts speak for themselves. The court filing, which came in discreetly just before noon, was a strong move. Crockett versus Patel, Civil Action Number 24-1837, was the title that made everyone in the room stop. But the second page was the real news, as Crockett asked for $80 million in damages, saying that Patel propagated false information that hurt her reputation and placed her safety at risk. She wasn't going to give up. That same day, Crockett's lawyers forwarded the lawsuit to every major news outlet. In a statement, she made her position clear. In an age where misinformation is currency, I refuse to let lies pay the bills for those who profit off character assassination. Mr. Patel didn't just ruin my reputation. He also put my job, my integrity, and my family at risk. This has nothing to do with politics. It's about the truth. Kash Patel, on the other hand, wasn't going to let it go that easy. He laughed when he heard about the lawsuit in Florida. $80 million for what? He joked, making fun of Crockett's allegation. He kept doubling back, making even bolder claims on another podcast, when he called Crockett a loudmouth and said she could file whatever she wanted. Patel was digging his own grave by not taking back his accusation or giving any proof. In defamation law, famous people have to show actual malice, which means that the individual disseminating lies knew they were lies or didn't care about the truth. Patel had just given Crockett's legal team the ideal ammunition by continuing to make the same bogus claim without any proof. Legal experts said that this could be one of the easiest defamation suits in years. Patel's reluctance to back down was a mistake he couldn't fix. Crockett carefully answered the question on MSNBC on if the lawsuit was for political advantage. "No," she said firmly. "I'm doing this so the next person thinks twice before using a microphone to ruin someone's name just to get likes." People paid attention to her answer. Independent voters who had never heard of Crockett before were suddenly complimenting her for how calm, collected, and fact-based she was. But Crockett wasn't done yet. She wanted the courts and the media to hold people accountable. So she asked Patel for a live interview, not to show off, but to hold him accountable. The media went crazy, and Patel's team took their time. But the damage was done even without a face-to-face. The situation had changed, and now Patel couldn't get away from what he had said. The day after Crockett's lawyers filed the case, the news blew out. The story was everywhere, from Seattle to St. Petersburg. Now that the case was public, it had context, which made things much worse for Patel. The story kept getting bigger, and the media wouldn't stop. Legal blogs, cable panels, and even instructors used the film to show pupils the difference between opinion and defamation. Patel kept going, though. He appeared on another conservative talk show, gloating that he was the actual victim, but this time the public wasn't buying it. Some of his most loyal fans were worried. They knew it wasn't about free speech. It was about lying, and Patel was about to find out how destructive that might be. There was a lot of strain behind the scenes. Patel's two regular sponsors quietly dropped him, and a network that carried his weekly feature stopped showing it. People in his camp said they were trying to come up with a fresh plan, but it was too late. There was no way to fix the harm. Crockett had not only outsmarted him, but she had also done better than him in every manner. Jasmine Crockett, on the other hand, stayed quiet. No outbursts, no ruffled feathers, just calm assurance. She knew that you should give your opponent the shovel when they want to dig a hole, but even she couldn't guess what would happen when the whole world saw Patel squirm under real-time pressure, live, and without any preparation. Kash Patel sat stiffly in his chair, and the studio lights were hotter than normal. The tailored blue jacket fit him tighter than it had the week before. This was supposed to be his moment to change the story and take back control after what he said about Crockett before. His team thought that this part of Corbindale's show would be a chance for him to make up for his mistakes, but they were quite wrong. People didn't think Corbindale, the host, was difficult, but producers had told him that this time things would be different. People who watched weren't just fans anymore. They were paying close attention. The network's legal staff even slid a printed notice under the studio door that said, "Don't make wild guesses. Allow the guest to speak." When the countdown hit 0 and the camera started rolling, Corbin smiled and said, "Tonight, we're joined by former Trump advisor Kash Patel, who is at the center of a political firestorm after comments he made about Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Let's get right to it." Patel nodded with confidence, ready to back up his claims. "Look," he added, "I said what a lot of people already know. Jasmine has been acting strange, and I simply brought it up." Corbin didn't like it when someone said, "That's not defamation, that's honesty." He leaned closer and read from a card he was carrying. "She sued you for expressing things that weren't true and hurtful. The court papers suggest that you knew you were lying. Can you answer that directly?" Patel smirked and tried to get over it. "That lawsuit is a show for politics. I have folks who can get me information." "You think I'd say something like that on the air without proof?" Corbin pressed, "Can you provide us any of those sources, even if it's just between us?" The place was so quiet that it hurt my ears. Patel moved around awkwardly, and his gaze went to the side, perhaps to his lawyer behind the curtain. He stopped for a moment, then muttered, "I mean, it's not that easy. These are people who work on the Hill, not those who want their names in the news." Corbin didn't believe it. "So there are no papers? No transfers? There is no proof that she made these supposed donations?" Patel chuckled softly, attempting to hide the panic that was coming in. "It's not about the paper trails. It's all about patterns. If you look closely, you can see it." The room was completely quiet. It wasn't just a fall, it was an explosion. The producer stopped typing, the floor director's face sank, and the whole segment came to a sudden stop. Patel had just said that he had no proof, no sources, no papers, only whispers and hearsay. This wasn't an accusation of slander anymore. It was a confession. The internet had already gone crazy by the time the show ended. Legal experts were ready to give their opinions. One person tweeted, "That wasn't a defense. That was a confession wrapped in a shrug." Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett in Dallas watched the interview without saying anything. She didn't say anything or grin. As Patel stammered through his feeble justifications, she just sipped her tea and stared at the TV. When Theo eventually spoke, "You want to post something?" She shook her head and said, "No. He did it for me." The next day, the clip was the most popular thing on every major platform. CNN played it over and over. MSNBC broke it down. Frame by frame, and even politically neutral news sites like the Oregon Ledger put "no proof, just whispers. Patel's case crumbles on live TV" in their headlines. People started to comprehend how serious Patel's statements were. Elise Bernard, a law professor at Tulane, said it straight out. This is actual malice in real time. He said it nevertheless, even though he knew there was no need for it. It's a classic case of defamation. The public's opinion changed suddenly. People who hadn't been following the story until now still knew what had just happened. You don't say someone committed a federal crime on national TV based on hearsay, and you definitely don't say it again after a lawsuit is filed. But Patel's refusal to give up kept hurting him. He went on another conservative talk show, where he was still confrontational, but not as sure of himself. In a shaky phone video he sent to his subscribers, he claimed, "I'm not going anywhere. They want to destroy me for telling the truth." This is what occurs when you touch the gadget. But the responses told a different story. "This isn't about the truth. You said you had evidence. You didn't take charge. Man, I was on your side until you embarrassed us all on national TV." The dominoes started tumbling. A podcast network quietly dumped him, and his planned book tour was put on hold for an unknown amount of time. But things were about to become worse. 2 days after the interview, an unknown person gave the Minnesota Ledger copies of Patel's PR team's internal communications. The emails showed that people in his camp were getting more and more worried long before the lawsuit was filed. One staff member wrote, "We don't have anything to back this up." One person said, "If Crockett sues, we're in trouble." Another said, "He won't stop. He believes the publicity is worth the danger." Jasmine's legal team soon added those emails to their expanding pile of evidence. "This is gold," her lawyer Michael Dandridge remarked. "It shows they knew and didn't care." At the same time, more people began to support Crockett. People from all walks of life and political views sent her a lot of messages of support on her social media. A woman from Utah wrote, "I've never given money to a campaign before, but watching how you stood your ground inspired me." A college student from Wisconsin wrote, "In a world where people go viral for lying, it's powerful to see someone go viral for standing up." Even journalists who usually don't take sides praised her calm, methodical approach. Jasmine wasn't trying to get on camera. She was putting together a case. She informed Theo, "Every minute I'm on TV is a minute I'm not in court." She was very focused. The media kept turning on Patel as the week went on, but Crockett's resolve just became stronger. By Friday morning, reporters were camped outside the federal courtroom in downtown Dallas. They weren't there for a ruling or for Patel, they were there for her. The night before, Jasmine Crockett had sent out a short message. "I will make a brief comment outside the courthouse at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time." There was no big build-up or long announcement, just one line. But the media knows better than to ignore it. The throng was already starting to form around 9:45. The setting was ready, and at 10 a.m., Crockett walked out of the courthouse. There was no entourage or podium. She only had a handheld mic and a document in her left hand. She donned a navy pantsuit that fit her well, and she didn't wear any jewelry or have a makeup artist. She looked like someone who was letting go of something. She said, "Good morning," and her voice was firm and strong. "This week, a former federal official accused me of crimes I didn't commit, not just casually on record, in front of an audience, without proof. The audience sat hushed, hanging on every word. And when he had the chance to explain, he told everyone he heard it from someone else. No name. There's no paper. Jasmine Crockett stood her ground with quiet strength. She didn't stop as the cameras clicked quickly. She knew the game too well, shouted loud, let it spread, and then act like you didn't mean it. But many people overlook this. Words don't just disappear. They stay around and do damage. She picked up the folder with her hand. She said, "Here is every threat I got this week," in a calm but forceful voice. Every message calling me a traitor. Every voicemail saying I should be dragged out of office because someone said I was taking dirty money from foreigners. She paused for a moment to let the weight of her words sink in. This isn't about left or right. This is what happens when we let people with microphones use them as weapons. You can't lie and leave. The crowd stopped talking. No one moved. Crockett wasn't angry or looking for retribution. She didn't want to own anyone. She was thinking about something larger. I filed this lawsuit not because I'm angry, not because I want to own anyone, she explained in a calm manner, but because the truth still counts. If you can lie about a member of Congress and not get in trouble, think about who else you may attack. Think about who will be hurt next. A reporter yelled, "Do you want to say something to Mr. Patel?" She didn't blink. "Yes, I do. You don't scare me." She turned to depart, but the message had already been sent. The whole message took less than 3 minutes, but by the time she got to the courthouse doors, people on social media had already turned it into a rallying cry. Within an hour, the phrase "you don't scare me" began trending. People shared videos of her standing there with no teleprompter or script, just genuine conviction, on sites like Reddit and WhatsApp groups. Talk shows aired the line again. News anchors echoed it, and college students made recordings of their reactions. People who had never paid attention to congressional proceedings suddenly knew exactly who Jasmine Crockett was. A Kansas City TV presenter noted later that day, she didn't just defend herself. She exhibited what it means to be a leader. Kash Patel, on the other hand, stayed mute. His lawyers didn't want to say anything. His Twitter account was no longer active. But not everyone who was on his side had kept quiet. An advisor who served on Patel's security detail told the Baytown Record he's falling apart behind closed doors. He didn't imagine she would fight back this way. Crockett's team in Dallas gathered around a small laptop screen to watch the video of her news appearance. Theo leaned back in his chair and remarked, "I think you just changed the story." She didn't grin. She only said, "Good. Let's keep going." Jasmine Crockett recognized something that most others in the country were just starting to understand. This was no longer just a civil suit. This was a line in the sand. If she could show in court that lies that were careless had actual effects, she wouldn't just be defending herself, she would be setting a standard. Politicians, influencers, and people in the media would have to think twice before going over that line. Patel's life was falling apart behind closed doors. The stillness from his camp had gone from smart to suspicious. No press, no tweets. There were no counter-interviews, only a carefully worded statement from Patel's lawyer. "We are reviewing legal options and will respond in due course." But there was no quiet inside Patel's media firm in Arlington, Virginia. There were fights, staff members packing boxes, and an increasing sense of anxiety. 3 days after Crockett's news appearance, an unnamed source sent the Sacramento Herald dozens of internal emails. The emails made a strong case against them. A PR strategist warned Patel in an email thread from 2 weeks before the lawsuit, "The claim about Crockett is gaining traction, but we're getting media questions about sources. We don't have any records." Patel himself said, "Let it cook. They won't suit me, and if they do, I'll win the public, not the court." That line went viral. It was quickly picked up by legal experts. Defense attorney Yvonne Bledsoe demonstrated on a live webcast why that one sentence might injure Patel more than everything else mentioned on TV. "It shows premeditation," she remarked. He realized he didn't have the information. He knew there would be blowback, but he still wanted the limelight. "This is malice. This was the proof that Crockett's lawyers required. Michael Dandridge, Crockett's lawyer, printed out the emails, marked the quotes, and put them in a binder with the title Exhibits Round 2. He stated, "This is bigger than a defamation suit now. It's a case of character, and his character is helping us." People in the legal field started to wonder if this case would go to trial. Most defamation cases settle because discovery is expensive and the media is harsh. But this one had teeth, and Jasmine Crockett didn't blink. On Monday, Crockett's staff talked about the notion of a quiet settlement if Patel made a public apology and gave money to a media literacy nonprofit. Crockett, on the other hand, shook her head. "I don't want money to fix this," she stated. "I want the record to be fixed in court under oath." His booking manager quit. His podcast was put on hold for an unknown amount of time. A conservative nonprofit he had planned to work with decided not to work with him. The worst part is that a whistleblower from Patel's donor circle came out to speak on the record to the Boston Gazette. This source said that Patel had been told several times not to accuse anyone of bribery without solid proof, especially not someone like Crockett, who had a legal background. He thought he could force the story to go his way. He didn't think she would hit back with facts. Crockett's lawyers filed a suit asking that Patel be deposed under oath just hours after the report came out. The hearing was set at 9 a.m. the next Tuesday. News organizations started to cover the calendar as if it were Super Tuesday. Even politicians began to speak out. Oregon Representative Caleb Moreno wrote on social media, "This lawsuit isn't just about defamation. It's about the kind of government we desire." I don't always agree with Crockett on policy, but I applaud her courage. Progressive representatives shared a picture of Crockett in court with the caption, "Accountability looks like this." Patel's close friends were fighting in Arlington. One advisor is said to have remarked, "Do we even have a way to move forward?" Patel didn't say anything for a long time before saying, "If I apologize now, I lose everything." What he didn't know was that he had already lost more than he realized. The moment that changed everything didn't happen in a boardroom or a courtroom. It happened with the folks watching at home. People from all over the country started sending letters and videos. One came from a retired history teacher in Rapid City, South Dakota. "I'm 76. I've seen a lot of elections and a lot of chaos, but what you're doing seems different. You're standing your ground and doing it in a graceful way. I hope you win, not just in court, but also in the eyes of the people. We need more people like you." A senior in high school in Nevada said, "We're studying law in civics class. Your clip was shown to me by my teacher. I felt like someone in D.C. genuinely cared about the truth for once. Thank you for not keeping quiet." Grassroots energy grew quickly. It wasn't about politics, it was about respect. People told their own stories of being lied about, misrepresented, or ignored. A lot of people took Crockett's case personally. It wasn't just about Congress anymore. It was about honesty and taking responsibility. In the meantime, mainstream news networks were paying attention. A group of independent voters from the Midwest talked about how the Crockett lawsuit will affect them on CNN. "I've had people lie about me," one woman stated. "It cost me a job once." "I know how it feels," the panel said. Then everything was silence. Another man said, "It's not often that you see someone fight the right way and not flinch." Cable news, which usually moves on quickly, kept the subject going, but this time it wasn't to stir up anger. It was making people think. The noise was getting louder within Patel's head. More leaks, more emails. One showed a media advisor begging Patel to make a public correction before the hearing. The advisor noted, "Jasmine has the high ground. Every minute we stay quiet, we look more guilty." But Patel said no. He made another video for his internet subscribers instead. He was wearing a t-shirt and sitting in a dimly lit workplace. "I know the media is spinning everything," he remarked, "but I still believe what I said. The truth is going to come out." The comments were really harsh. "What truth? You really did say you had no proof. You should be ashamed of yourself right now." And only a few days before the hearing was supposed to happen, the Raleigh Dispatch ran an exclusive report. A digital forensic company looked at Patel's live interview and compared it to timestamps from internal Slack chats. What they found was bad. During the interview, Patel's own crew had reported his comment in real time and told producers to shut the broadcast. They didn't. And that moment was now part of the show. Crockett was getting ready in Dallas, but he wasn't making a lot of noise. No headlines, no explosions on social media. Just meeting with Michael and Theo every day to go over deposition outlines and plan for whatever dodge Patel might try. She wasn't getting ready for theatrics. She was getting ready for the truth. A reporter yelled, "Congresswoman, are you feeling good about next week?" when a local TV crew saw her coming into a law office one afternoon. Jasmine Crockett's statements were calm and focused as she stood outside the courthouse. "I don't build my case on confidence," she added with a small smile. "I base it on facts." Things were moving swiftly in the courtroom. The judge had looked over her new complaint, the leaked emails, and the social media trail, and he had let each one stand. Patel couldn't just say that the claims were wrong. He had to explain why he acted the way he did, a practice of doubling down, making his accuser look bad, and turning slander into fun. Legal blogs had already started writing headlines. The Crockett case could set a modern standard for lawsuits against people who spread false information. People were watching, and Crockett's fans were setting up rallies to thank her, not to criticize. A few people in Baltimore held signs that said, "Truth, Clout." A group of journalism students in Tempe, Arizona, staged a campus debate on ethics and political reporting, with her case as the main topic. In Cincinnati, a mother of 3 shared a video of herself holding her baby and stating, "I want her to grow up in a country where she can fight back and win if someone lies about her. That's why I'm keeping an eye on this case." What started as a smudge had grown into something far bigger. It wasn't just about one woman, it was about everyone who had ever been talked over, written off, or lied about without an explanation. And what about Jasmine Crockett? She was just getting started. But while the world watched her get ready, Patel's lawyers were preparing a desperate plan behind closed doors. This plan might either shift the trajectory of the case or blow it up completely. At 8 a.m., the doors to the courthouse opened. In the early morning in Texas, a few dozen reporters were waiting outside. No chanting, no demonstrations. As Jasmine Crockett went through the door with her lawyer and 2 aides, there was just silence and the sound of cameras snapping. No glasses, no big pause, just a steady walk with your eyes on the road. This hearing wasn't about the final decision. It was about whether the defamation case would go to full discovery and trial. But at this point, the stakes had gone much beyond the law. It was about principle, about past events. The room filled up quickly inside the gallery. Students from SMU's law school sat next to each other. 2 federal judges sat in the rear rows and watched, although they weren't there officially. Kash Patel got there 12 minutes later. His outfit was a little too dark for midday, and his face was hard to read. He didn't look proud or defensive, just tired. His lawyers appeared just as agitated as he did, muttering in tight circles and turning through binders with different colors. At 9:15, Judge Delano Ramirez took his seat. He was known for being fair and not liking showy things, so if either side tried to turn this into a show, they would be shut down right away. Michael Dandridge, Crockett's lawyer, went first. He calmly and methodically walked the judge through the timeline, the original podcast quote, the repeated accusations on Corbin Dale's show, Patel's own words, the internal emails that showed his team knew the claim was false, and the public fallout, which included threats sent to Crockett's office. He held up a copy of Patel's interview transcript and stated, "Your Honor, this isn't about a slip of the tongue. This is about a planned pattern of public slander that has no basis in actuality. It meets the standard for discovery according to current case law." Ramirez nodded a little, wrote some notes, and then went to Patel's lawyer. "Mr. Maddox, what do you say?" Brent Maddox got up slowly, picking each word carefully. "Your Honor, Even though my client's comments were unfortunate, he said, we argue that they are protected by the broad protections of political opinion and commentary. We also plan to submit a move to dismiss based on the First Amendment. Ramirez lifted an eyebrow. Your client charged a sitting congresswoman of committing a crime, not expressing an opinion or making a joke, bribery. Are you ready to say that was free speech? There was a break. Maddox cleared his throat. We're ready to say that he thought it was true at the time. Ramirez sat back. Simply believing is not enough to protect you. And with that, everything changed. The room sensed it, a change that might make or destroy Patel's case. After a brief break, Judge Ramirez came back with his ruling. The court finds enough reasons for this case to move on to discovery. The plaintiff has made reasonable claims of defamation based on actual malice standards, backed up by comments and records that point to prior knowledge of falsehood. A murmur went through the gallery. The lawsuit would go on. Patel would have to give sworn testimony. His private messages, interviews, and other internal correspondence were all going to become fair game. Outside the courthouse, reporters were rushing to convey notifications to their bosses. Judge Greenlight's Crockett lawsuit, defamation case, goes to discovery. Crockett's squad left in a cool manner, with no smiles or fist pumps, just professionalism. She stopped for the first time all day when a reporter asked her how she felt. She stated, I feel like we're finally going somewhere real. We're going to follow the lie all the way to the truth, he said. Patel went out a side door. There was no remark or message, just a black SUV with the motor running. A source later quoted by the Anchorage Post said that Patel murmured, we need to settle this before I have to testify. But Crockett wasn't interested in making deals anymore. She had gone from being reactive to being relentless. This was more than just clearing her name. It was also about showing that public persons with microphones couldn't ruin reputations for clicks and then walk away. And now that the court had given the go-ahead, that message was about to get louder. What happened next would turn popular support into full-blown support. Tuesday was the day for the deposition phase. No cameras. No press. There were just lawyers, a court reporter, and Kash Patel in a private conference room. No sound bites or deflections. Just questions and answers. The deposition was not attended by Jasmine Crockett. Her lawyers did, and they were ready. Not with showboating, but with receipts. They began with basic things. Mr. Patel, do you know for sure that Congresswoman Crockett took money from a foreign country? No, he said, crossing his arms. Did you talk to anyone who said they saw that happen? No. Did you check this information through any legal or journalistic means before you said it? I didn't think I had to. That answer made it clear. It could sound brave to say I didn't think I needed to in a public opinion court, but in the deposition transcript, it sounded like an admission of guilt. The Crockett team carefully put together his claims, along with timestamps from internal messaging, snippets from his own recordings, and parts of hacked emails telling him not to disclose anything without proof. There was nothing left to shield him, no story to hold on to, only quiet and signed pages. Crockett's lawyers left quietly when the deposition was over. They didn't hurry to disclose the transcript. They didn't ask for headlines. They understood that the facts would speak for themselves. Within a week, Patel's lawyers got in touch with him personally to offer a public apology and a money settlement. This time, Jasmine said no. Instead, she shared a simple graphic with black text on white that said, I didn't file this lawsuit to get paid. I went after it because the truth is important. And when individuals in power misuse the microphones, someone has to stand out for the truth, not just for me, but for everybody who's ever been lied about and had to deal with the fallout. In just 24 hours, the statement was shared more than 2 million times. Legal scholars started writing opinion pieces about it and dubbed it the Crockett Standard. This decision could change how public defamation is handled in the age of social media and podcasts. Sabrina Lynn, a legal commentator, told PBS NewsHour why the case was important. This wasn't just a legal win. It was a cultural thing. Crockett showed that you can be direct without being showy and strong without being reckless. She triumphed because she stayed calm and didn't go to the level of her accuser. Things altered in the weeks that followed. 2 podcasts changed their guest procedures so that they had to check the facts before making charges against public persons. A small independent news organization in Florida added a disclaimer to its political coverage. They won't publish statements that aren't backed up by evidence. Crockett came back to Congress with a lot of support. She didn't get louder. She didn't look any better. But she possessed something that made her presence different now. Gravity, the type you earn. People who lived in her district wrote to thank her. One mother from Lubbock commented, "My daughter saw all this and told me she wants to be a lawyer, not to get rich, but to protect people's names." A retired prison officer from Wyoming wrote another letter that said, "We live in a time when it seems like lies move faster than truth. You made me remember that the truth still has legs. It just takes longer to catch up. Thanks for sticking in the race." Even members of Congress, who rarely crossed party lines, gave her discreet nods in the hallway. They didn't agree with her politics, they just respected her. Patel, on the other hand, faded away slowly. Then, all of a sudden, his number of subscribers went down. The sponsors left. He had once bragged about getting a book deal, but it was quietly put on hold. Finally, on a Friday night, he gave a vague apology. "To those who were hurt by what I said recently, I am sorry for any harm I caused." But by then, it was too late. Jasmine had already been hurt, and so had his own reputation. He put all his money on the show and lost to someone who never spoke up. What is the moral of it all? Words have power, even the ones you say into cheap microphones or type into 280 characters. And in a world where lies are worth money, sometimes the only way to get the truth is to sue. If you learned something from this story, such that facts still count, that you don't have to yell to stand your position, or that it's important to safeguard your reputation, please subscribe. This channel is for stories that not only tell you something, but also mean something.